The lights behind me appeared out of nowhere, red and blue, dancing in my rearview mirror like sirens in water. I'd been driving for almost an hour without seeing a single car on a stretch of Highway 190 that cuts through the California desert like a scar. It was just after midnight. I hadn't passed another vehicle in 50 miles, hadn't seen a gas station in 30, and the nearest town was a forgotten dot called Darwin. So when those lights blinked to life behind me, something in my stomach turned to ice. I pulled over because that's what you're supposed to do, even when your gut whispers not to. Even when the asphalt feels like it's floating in the dark and the silence is so complete it makes your ears ring. I killed the engine. The desert swallowed the sound whole. My headlights stretched forward into the void, illuminating nothing but the low shimmer of heat still rising off the pavement. I sat still, waiting, hands on the wheel like some middle-aged cliché. My window was down and the air was thick with that dry, baked scent, sun-bleached dust, and old rubber. Crickets had gone silent. I waited and waited. It took him a long time to approach. I didn't hear footsteps, just the slow crunch of gravel as he finally emerged from behind the blinding lights. His silhouette looked right, hat, badge glinting faintly, the classic dark shape of an officer's uniform. But something was off. He moved like he was deciding how to walk. Each step too slow, like he was mimicking the idea of a cop from memory. He came to my window and leaned in just slightly. I could barely make out his features in the dark, but his face seemed pale beneath the brim of his hat, not weathered, not tan like someone who spent their life in the sun. Just smooth. Almost waxy. "Evening," he said. "Mind telling me where you're headed?" His voice was flat. Too calm. No radio crackle, no flashlight, no license and registration. He didn't look at my plates. He didn't touch his belt. I blinked, caught off guard. Just passing through. Headed east. Vegas." He nodded too slowly. "Vegas, huh? Alone? That's not a normal question. Not out here. Not like that." There was no friendly banter, no small talk, no mention of speed or taillights or any reason for a stop. "Yeah, just me." "Good," he said, standing straighter. "You got any sharp objects on you?" My pulse jumped. "Sorry. Knives? Razors? Anything sharp." It wasn't the question itself. It was the way he asked it, too casually, like he was genuinely curious, like a teacher checking for cheat sheets. I studied him more closely. His name badge was either missing or turned inward. His car, still parked behind me, had no markings that I could see, just those two bright lights, casting everything in a hellish strobe. "No," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "No weapons." He smiled. "Just a little." Then he leaned forward and I caught a whiff of something that wasn't sweat or cologne, something sour. "Like meat left out too long. You look a little nervous." "I'm fine." "You sure? You look nervous. You know what nervous people do, right?" I said nothing. My hands were still on the wheel, too tight now. "They lie," he said. Silence stretched. The desert around us felt like a set. Too quiet. Too still. As if the earth was holding its breath. "Step out of the car," he said. I didn't move. I couldn't. My instincts were screaming now, not just whispering, but wailing like a fire alarm in my head. Every part of me told me not to open that door. "I'd rather not, officer." "Is there a problem?" He didn't answer. Just stood there staring. The lights behind him made his pupils look too big, too dark. Then he tilted his head, a fraction too far, like a bird. And then I saw it. His belt. The one every cop wears, with the handcuffs, flashlight, pepper spray, the radio, all of it, it wasn't there. In its place was a plain leather strap, no equipment, nothing functional. Just something to fill the space. That was the moment. The moment my body finally caught up to what my brain had been hinting at since the stop began. This wasn't a cop. Something inside me flipped like a switch. I reached for the ignition, slow, steady, and turned the key. The engine sputtered to life, and for one insane second I thought he'd reach and drag me out. But he didn't. He stepped back like he was testing me. Like he wanted to see what I'd do. So I did the only thing I could. I drove. Fast. I didn't look back until I hit the turnoff 30 miles later. And when I did, there were no lights behind me. No sign I'd ever been pulled over. But I'll tell you something that still haunts me. A minute or two before I saw the turnoff, I passed a small sign on the side of the road. Barely visible in my headlights. It said, "State Patrol checkpoint ahead, closed since 1997. And that's when I realized something that still makes my skin crawl. The road was empty the whole time. So where the hell did he come from? I didn't stop driving for a long time. The desert blurred past me, low shrubs and faded mile markers in the high beams, the kind of emptiness that makes you feel like you're the only person left on Earth. I kept checking the rear view, expecting those red and blue lights to bloom back into existence behind me like some kind of mirage. But they never did. I made it to a rundown 24-hour gas station near a junction called Tacopa, little more than a shack with 2 pumps and a flickering Coke machine out front. I needed to breathe, to see another human being, to remind myself that the world was still real. The guy behind the counter looked half asleep, watching an old CRT television bolted into the corner. When I walked in, the bell above the door let out a tired jingle, and he looked up with the slow, suspicious squint of someone who's seen too much night. I grabbed a bottle of water and stood at the counter a little too long. I didn't want to get back on the road just yet. "You look like you've seen a ghost," the guy said, ringing me up. "Something like that," I muttered. "Weird question, but have there been any police around tonight?" He frowned. "Out here? Nah. Closest station's Ridgecrest. You break down or something?" "No," I said. "Just a traffic stop." Felt off. The guy didn't answer right away. Just stared at me a second longer than I liked, then nodded slowly like he understood more than he was saying. "Well," he said, handing me my change, "you're a long way from anywhere. Lots of things feel off out here." I stepped back outside. The air was cooler now, but it didn't help. My hands were still shaking. I almost didn't see it. As I passed the side of the building to get to my car, I caught a glimpse of something on the ground. A single, precise boot print in the thin layer of dust near the ice machine facing the wall. It looked fresh, not smudged or windblown. The tread caught my eye. I don't know what made me bend down and look closer, but I did. And that's when it hit me. The pattern was wrong. Not just odd wrong. The soles had these strange, repeating shapes. Not your standard rubber tread, but tiny crosses. Not like a church cross, but symmetrical like a plus sign. Almost like the kind of shapes you'd see stamped into something old. Vintage. I stood up fast and looked around. No one. I told myself it was probably a work boot, the kind construction guys wear. But it didn't feel like that. It felt deliberate, left there for me to see. That night, I didn't make it to Vegas. I found a cheap motel in Shoshone, old, with buzzing neon and paper-thin walls. I told myself I needed to sleep, to rest, to shake this off. But every time I closed my eyes, I saw the face. Or rather, the absence of one. Because here's the thing I didn't realize until hours later, lying there in that yellow-lit room with the hum of the air conditioner rattling my skull. He never blinked. Not once. Not when I answered his questions. Not when I started the car. Not even when I peeled off down the road. His eyes never moved. They were open the entire time, wide, unbroken, like he didn't know how they worked. Around 3 a.m. I cracked. I got up, turned on every light in the room, and sat at the little motel desk with my laptop. I searched for everything I could think of: unmarked traffic stops, impersonator cases, desert patrol stories, paranormal police encounters. Nothing specific. But one thread came up a few times on older forums and dead blogs, accounts from people who'd had similar experiences in the middle of nowhere. Not the same exactly, but close enough to twist my stomach. People being pulled over by someone who didn't ask for ID, who never cited a reason, who asked odd personal questions, who never blinked. In a few cases, those who complied, who got out of the car, reported losing hours, waking up in the driver's seat with no memory of what happened. One guy said his dash cam corrupted the moment the lights appeared. Another claimed his car was rearranged, radio presets all wiped, glove box items placed on the back seat, seat adjusted too far back. A woman in Arizona described being asked if she was pure. That was all. Then the man turned and walked away, vanishing into the desert. None of them could prove it. No photos. No badge numbers. No body cam footage. Just the memory. And the fear. It felt like whatever it was, it wanted something. But it hadn't figured out how to ask for it yet. And the scariest part? They all said the same thing. The man wasn't pretending to be a cop. He thought he was one. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the crunch of gravel, that slow, unnatural rhythm of his footsteps, like someone listening to the idea of walking instead of doing it. By morning, I was wired on motel coffee and nerves, pacing the faded carpet as the desert sun baked the parking lot outside. My car sat in its spot like a sleeping animal, dusty and quiet. I didn't want to get back in. I didn't want to risk seeing him again. But I had a job waiting for me in Vegas, and calling out because of a hallucinated cop stop in the desert didn't feel like a valid excuse. So I got in. I drove. And the silence followed me. The thing about desert highways is that your mind starts to wander when there's nothing else to hear but the hum of your tires and the buzz of the AC. You start thinking about things you'd rather not. Like how the man never touched his belt. Never gave a name. Never even told me why I was being stopped. And worse, how come I'd been. How I'd played along. Like part of me already knew not to challenge him. I stayed on the main roads this time. No back highways. No shortcuts. I was maybe 40 miles outside of Vegas, somewhere near Pahrump, when I saw it again. A car pulled over on the shoulder. Put up. Emergency lights flashing in the heat shimmer. It was an older model sedan, pale blue, mid-90s, the kind of car someone inherits, not buys. And standing beside it, waving his arms? A man in a uniform. Not a cop's uniform. It took me a second to realize why it looked strange. It was tan, not navy, and the badge, if that's what it was, didn't shine. Just a dull, circular patch over the breast pocket. It looked more like a costume. Like something from a movie. Too clean. Too pressed. He didn't move like someone panicked. Or even hopeful. He moved like someone acting out a role. His arm raised, palm out, face tilted just enough to be seen through the windshield. And once again, that same creeping sensation returned. Like a finger tracing the base of my skull. That same stillness in the world. That same message behind my eyes, don't stop. So I didn't. I passed him doing 60, hands white-knuckled on the wheel. I looked in the mirror. He was still standing there. Arm lowered. Watching me go. That's when I remembered something. Back at the gas station, when I saw that strange boot print, I didn't hear a car. I didn't hear anything. But that print was fresh. Right beside my car. He'd followed me there. Or gotten there first. That realization hit me like a brick to the chest. Whatever this was, whoever he wasn't just pulling people over at random. He was following me. I pulled off into a fast food lot on the edge of a town called Blue Diamond. Shaky, sweating. Ordered something I didn't eat. I just needed a building around me. Noise. People. A camera or two. I sat there staring at the people in line. Teenagers. A mother with a baby. A guy in a reflective vest waiting on his lunch break. Normal people. And then I heard it. From the booth behind me. A voice. Quiet. Too calm. You sure you didn't speak to anyone after the stop? I froze. The voice didn't sound like it was talking to me. But it was close. I could hear the artificial cadence, the practiced rhythm. Like someone trying to sound casual and not quite pulling it off. A second voice responded. Nervous. Younger. No, I didn't. I told my roommate about it, but... The first voice cut in. That's not what I asked. My throat went dry. I turned slightly. Just enough to glance back. The man sitting in the booth behind me wore a dark shirt, plain. No badge. No ID. His skin looked wrong. Too smooth. Like it hadn't moved much. Like someone new to the idea of expression. And across from him, a college-aged kid, sweating bullets. Pale. Terrified. I looked away. Got up. Left the tray. Left the food. Walked out without looking back. Whatever this was, it wasn't just about me anymore. It was a pattern. People were being stopped. Questioned. But not by police. By something else. Something that didn't need backup. Something that didn't carry weapons. Because it didn't need to. I got back in my car, locked the doors, and sat there for a long time. Then I remembered something else. Something I hadn't realized I'd been trying to forget. Back during the stop, when the man leaned in, he had something clipped to his collar. I thought it was a penlight or maybe a mic. But now, with all of this rushing back, I remembered the shape. It was a small circle. Matte black. No lens, no buttons. Just a hole in the center. Like a microphone. Or an ear. He was recording me. Listening. Not for law enforcement. For data. I didn't go to Vegas. I kept driving, but not toward anything. Just away. Past the sprawl, past the turnoffs. Until I found a place that didn't have any people, any lights, or anything that could reach out and touch me. I ended up at a dead-end service road just off Route 160, west of Red Rock Canyon. There was a small lot with a broken gate and an old maintenance shack surrounded by Joshua trees and rusted wire. I killed the engine and sat there, listening to the wind roll over the sand. The stillness wasn't comforting anymore. It felt staged. And I started thinking about what I'd seen in that fast food restaurant. He was interviewing the kid, not arresting him, not warning him, interviewing, asking questions like he was filling out a report, cataloging something. But for who? And then I did something I hadn't done since the night it started. I checked my dash cam. I'd had it for a few years, a decent model. It loops footage every few hours, but I keep a backup SD card in the glove box. I popped it in, scrolled to the time of the stop, and hit play. Nothing. The moment I pulled over, the footage glitched. The image smeared like wet paint across the screen. The sound cut out entirely. I could see myself frozen behind the wheel, but the man? He never appeared. The door never opened. It was as if I was sitting alone on that road the whole time, terrified of nothing. I fast-forwarded, hoping to catch just a glimpse of him walking back to the cruiser. But there was no cruiser. The lights were there flickering across my rearview mirror in pulsing waves, but when the camera faced backward, the shoulder was empty. No vehicle. Just flashing light. I pulled the card, put it back in the glove box, and sat there for a long time, watching the sun drag itself down behind the rocks, listening to the creak of old metal as the wind stirred the gate. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been marked, cataloged, chosen. That's when I remembered the detail that finally snapped everything into place. Back during the stop, when I reached for my ID, I noticed something odd on his hand. A stamp. Faint, like one of those nightclub ink marks that's half washed off. It was a circle, and inside the circle, a single word. Observed. At the time, I thought it was just sweat or a scar. But now it felt like something else. Like a label. Like I'd passed some invisible checkpoint. Been scanned. Tagged. I left the service road just before nightfall and drove without thinking. No music. No stops. I didn't even feel tired anymore. Just wired, like something was pushing me forward, demanding motion. Around midnight, I pulled into a rest stop outside Beatty. Empty. Just a couple of vending machines and a single bathroom building humming with electric light. I figured I'd stay until sunrise. That's when I noticed the other car. Black. Parked nose first in a corner spot, windows tinted to hell. It hadn't been there when I arrived. I was sure of that. I checked the lot instinctively, out of habit now. But here it was. No lights, no sound. Just sitting. I didn't get out. Just watched. And then, without warning, the headlights blinked on. Not slowly. Not with the slow ignition of a car being started. They snapped on like someone had flipped a switch. And a few seconds later, they turned off. Nothing else. No door opening. No engine sound. Just that one flicker of light. That's when I understood something, really understood it for the first time. This wasn't about impersonation. This wasn't someone pretending to be a cop. This was something using the image of authority. Like a mask. Like a tool. And I don't think it was just testing me. I think it was learning from me. Trying to understand how far it could push before I broke. How many strange questions it could ask before I ran. How close it could get to blending in. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized something that made me go cold inside. What if I hadn't started the car? What if I'd stepped out like it told me? Would I have disappeared? Would anyone even know I was gone? Or would it have just taken my name, my face, and moved on? I didn't sleep at the rest stop. I sat in the car, locked in, all windows up, eyes burning holes through that black sedan. It never moved again. Not the entire night. By morning, I was questioning if it had ever blinked its headlights at all. If I'd imagined the whole thing. But the uneaten snacks on the passenger seat and the engine heat off the hood reminded me I wasn't dreaming. I hadn't been for a long time. By 7 a.m., I pulled back onto the highway and headed north. Not to Vegas. Not home. Just away. Somewhere. I couldn't name the destination anymore. I just needed to be moving, to stay in the cracks of places where things couldn't follow. But something did. It started with the motel clerk in Tonopah. I was checking in, same as I always did, card down, fake name this time, just in case. I hadn't spoken a word when he looked up at me and said, "You already have a room here." I blinked. "No. I just got here." He frowned, confused. "No, I remember. You were here last night. Same car. Room 12. He turned the guest log around and pointed at my license plate, neatly printed in the margin beside room 12, timestamped 10:43 p.m. the night before. I hadn't been there. I swear to you, I hadn't been there. The keycard was still on the hook behind him. I backed out fast, mumbled something about mistaken identity, and got in the car before my breath gave me away. I drove 10 miles out of town and parked in an abandoned way station. My hands were trembling too badly to hold the steering wheel steady. I stared at my own reflection in the rear view. Something was wrong with my memory. I knew where I'd been, what roads I'd taken. I still had the gas receipts, the bottle of warm water from the rest stop, the crumbs from the uneaten sandwich. But if that was true, who the hell checked in under my name? Who was driving my car? I started to wonder if that stop in the desert had gone differently than I remembered. If maybe I had stepped out of the car. Maybe just for a second. Maybe long enough for something to see me, to learn me, to wear me. That's when I remembered the second detail. The one I hadn't let myself think about until now. When he leaned in, back on that empty road, I could see myself reflected in his glasses. Only it wasn't quite right. My reflection had been smiling. I wasn't. Back then, I'd assumed it was a distortion. A trick of the angle or the lens. But now, I wasn't so sure. What if that reflection wasn't me? What if it was a rehearsal? Something clicked then. Not in my head, but deeper in that primal, lizard brain place where instinct lives. I reached into the glove box and pulled out the dashcam card again. Slipped it into my laptop. Fast-forwarded to just after the static, to the moment the video returned. And there I was, behind the wheel. Driving. Stone-faced. But here's the part that made my skin crawl. My lips were moving. I was talking. To no one. I turned the volume up, hoping for some whisper of sound, some clue. Nothing. Just silence. But the look on my face, it was blank. Mechanical. Like I was reciting lines from a script I didn't understand. I stared at the screen for a long time, heart pounding. I wasn't alone in that car. I might not have even been me. And that's when the email arrived. Yes. Email. From an address I didn't recognize. No name. No subject line. Just a single message sent to my personal account, the one I never use for anything but bills. It said, "Interview complete. Results pending validation. Do not deviate from assigned path." Attached was a file. An audio clip. I opened it. It was my voice, listing facts about myself in a flat, affectless tone. Name, birth date, places I've lived, favorite foods, childhood fears. Then a pause. Then subject is uncooperative. Repetition recommended. My stomach turned. This wasn't a case of mistaken identity. Something had taken mine. I left the laptop open on the passenger seat as I drove, not because I wanted to hear the audio again, but because I needed to know if something else would come through. A second message. Another voice. But nothing did. Just that one clip of me or something using my voice, rattling off my life like a data sheet. I tried deleting the file. The email vanished the second I closed it. But when I opened my laptop later that night, just out of reflex, the file was back. The name of it had changed. Replication attempt 2, field notes. I didn't open it. I couldn't. Not yet. That night, I pulled into a roadside motel in a town that barely had a name, a few blinking lights in the dark, a gas station that closed at 10, and a bar with no windows. I didn't use my real name this time. Paid in cash. Asked for the farthest room from the road. I checked every mirror. I turned off the lights. I kept the TV on static just to have a sound, something random. Something human. I didn't sleep. Not because I didn't want to, but because I saw something in the mirror across from the bed. My reflection. Just standing. Not moving. Not even breathing. It was me. Same clothes. Same hair. But my eyes, they weren't right. They weren't looking back. They were looking past me like the mirror was a window and someone else was on the other side. And then it blinked. I didn't. I threw the blanket over the mirror, unplugged the TV, and sat in the corner of the room until daylight broke over the desert. I checked out before the office even opened. And here's where things get worse. I stopped for gas about an hour east. Just to fill up, nothing else. The station was one of those old, single-pump relics with a diner attached. I didn't want food, but I needed coffee and people around me. I needed reality. There was a man sitting at the counter, reading a local paper. Cowboy hat, silver goatee, dusty boots. Looked like he'd been born in that booth. He glanced up at me when I walked in, gave a slow nod. Then paused. "You heading east?" he asked. I hesitated. "Yeah. Desert gets strange that way," he said. "You hear things you ain't supposed to hear. See people you don't remember meeting." I tried to play it cool. "You saying I should turn around?" He smiled without warmth. "I'm saying you'll know when it's already too late." I didn't answer. I paid for the coffee, nodded politely, and stepped outside. And there, across the parking lot, standing beside my car, was me. Not an exact copy. The clothes were slightly off, a shirt I hadn't worn in years. A jacket I thought I'd lost. But the face? It was mine. Expressionless. Still. Watching. I backed toward the diner door, heart thundering. Reached for my keys. But he had turned and walked away. Not fast. Just casual, like he'd been seen, and that was enough. I didn't chase him. I just got in the car and sat there until my hands stopped shaking. That's when I noticed the rearview mirror. There was something on the glass, written in the condensation that shouldn't have been there in the first place. You're learning. Good. I drove. Didn't stop for hours. And when I finally pulled over at a scenic overlook, I opened the laptop again. The file was still there, replication attempt 2, and now I had to know. I had to hear what else had been recorded. I hit play. It wasn't my voice this time. It was someone else. Older. Slower. Reading a report aloud like into a tape recorder. Subject responds well to fear stimuli. Memory reliability moderate. Compliance levels low. Recalibration recommended. Then a pause. Subject may retain partial awareness of intrusion. Threat level pending. Then silence. Then my voice again, whispering. Except I never said the words I heard next. There's something wearing me. I didn't drive anymore after that. I pulled over just before sundown, somewhere along Highway 6, the part where the road narrows and the sky feels too big, like it could crush you if you looked up for too long. I sat there in the driver's seat, engine off, the last rays of daylight bleeding over the desert like rust on glass. I opened the laptop again. The file was gone. Nothing in the downloads folder. Nothing in recent activity. Like it had never existed. But I could still hear it. Every word. Every breath. There's something wearing me. I kept replaying those moments in my mind, the questions the man asked, the boot print behind the gas station, the fast food interrogation, the second version of me standing by my own car. I remembered the motel clerk insisting I'd already checked in. The reflection that blinked when I didn't. The growing feeling that whatever was happening didn't start in the desert. It started before. I opened my glove box and took out my registration. My insurance card. Checked the name. The date. All correct. Then I took out my wallet. My license was there. Same photo. Same address. But the issue date, it was 2 weeks ago. I hadn't renewed it. I hadn't even been to the DMV in over a year. And suddenly, I remembered something I hadn't thought of in days. The stop. That first moment when the lights appeared behind me on that empty road, I didn't hear a siren. I only saw the lights. And I never heard a car approach. Never heard tires on gravel or the hum of an engine. Just a flicker in the mirror. A bloom of red and blue that didn't light up the sky around it. Just me. Like the lights were meant for me alone. That was when I realized something. They hadn't stopped me. They'd replaced me. I sat in the silence of the parked car, staring at the road ahead, and I thought, what happens now? Do I go home? Go to the police? Show them a corrupted dash cam and a missing email? Who would believe me? Who would even recognize me? And then, right as the sun slipped beneath the horizon, I saw movement in the side mirror. A figure. Not approaching. Standing. Still. The same height as me. Same frame. Just outside the edge of the reflection. I didn't dare turn around. I reached up, slow and mechanical, and adjusted the mirror. And there he was. Standing by the rear bumper. Face calm. Hands at his sides. Wearing the same jacket I had on yesterday. The one I thought I left in the back seat. He looked up into the mirror and smiled. A quiet, closed-lip smile. Like we were sharing a secret. Then he turned, not toward the desert, not toward the highway, but toward the driver's side door. I didn't wait to see if he reached for the handle. I threw the car into gear and peeled out, tires spitting gravel behind me. The headlights caught nothing in the rearview. No figure. No shadow. Just the open stretch of highway and the deepening night. I drove until the gas light came on, then kept driving. And here's what I want you to understand. There was no chase. There was no scream, no flash of light, no vanishing man or shape-shifting shadow. Just that one silent moment, a mirror, a smile, a choice. I made the right one. I think. But some nights, when I stop at a motel in some nameless town and I catch a glimpse of myself in the bathroom mirror, shoulders too stiff, smile just a hair too wide, I wonder. Did I really get away? Or did he? Because sometimes in the silence I swear I hear it again. My own voice. Just behind the glass. Whispering. Subject accepted. Pattern now complete. And the lights flicker. Just a little. But I never look too long. And I never drive the desert at night anymore. You shouldn't either. Because if something steps out of the dark wearing a uniform that doesn't quite fit and asks you where you're headed, don't answer. Don't speak. Don't even stop. Just keep going. And whatever you do, don't look in the mirror.